Welcome back, everybody. Hope you are doing well. Again, I'm pumped to be sharing with you all yet another guest who's going to bring a fascinating story. And just a reminder, if you've been enjoying the content, please hit the like button and also subscribe because it's completely free. It's free. So come on, hit the subscribe button. Today's guest, man, this guy is a sniper out on the football field. He tears up the returners with his pinpoint accuracy as a punter. He has placed his name at the very top of the Titans franchise leaderboard in his position as a punter. At the end of the 2019 campaign, he was ranked the all-time punter for the Tennessee Titans in gross punting, in average of 45.9, in net punting with an average of 40.8. He places so many of his punts inside the 20. I think he has a grand total of like 333. Well, he also has been to 3 consecutive Pro Bowls. So that was pre-COVID, and then COVID year season, it was all messed up. But that also gives him an All-Pro as well. Brett Kern just finished up his 13th season, and his abilities seem to be aging like a fine wine. Brett is definitely a fantastic football player, but he is known to be even a better person off the field. He is a man with strong convictions. He's a man strong in his Christian faith, and he's a husband, he's a father, and a friend to many. And that's why I can't wait to hear Brett's story and see what his takeaways are. And of course, I'm intrigued by just his take on life. So let's kick it with Brett Kern. Thanks for joining us here on Kicking It with David Akers. I've been sharing this with my guests. This is kind of a family project that I've been doing with my kids, and I'm just very appreciative of your time. I know you're probably just getting some of your kids to bed, so you know the deal. You know the routine. So thank you so much for spending your time with me tonight. And man, the backdrop looks amazing, man. And I know we were just saying, like, it just shows you that you've been around the NFL for quite a while, bro. You've been there for 13 years. I played 15, and it seems like it's a blink of an eye. So again, just thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, not a problem. I'm trying to get my backdrop to look as decorated as yours. So, you know, I got a couple more years to catch up to you and a couple more Pro Bowls and All Pros, but hopefully I can get on David Akers' status and level here pretty soon.
Yeah, You keep telling yourself that. Hey, tell me real quick when we start, what's up with this coffee? Are you a big coffee guy?
Yeah, I am a big coffee guy. When I met my wife in college, wasn't into coffee at all. But then she worked at Starbucks, and at the end of her shift, she would be able to bring home a drink or something like that. And so she would bring home a drink. I would try it out, yay or nay. And then as we, got married and we started having kids, I went from a kind of a specialty drink to now I am just coffee connoisseur, straight black, try the different beans, ground them, all that kind of stuff. So this is a coffee shop down in 30A. And so I figured I would, kind of support a local business down there. And it's an extremely comfortable sweatshirt. So
Well, that's great. Well, I'm a coffee snob myself, more of a latte guy. Now, let me ask you this: do you do lattes and cappuccinos, or you do like French press? Like, what is your go-to?
my go-to is I love to get local beans, grind them down, and then turn it into cold brew. And I'm a big cold brew guy. So even in the wintertime, summer, I love cold drinks. So I'll either do cold brew or I'll do like an iced Americano. So those are kind of my two go-to drinks.
Do you have, and again, I'm a latte guy, so it's funny because there aren't really people that are lukewarm, right? And we can talk about this in a faith relationship as well. But you're either a hot guy, it seems like, or you're kind of cold. And it seems like to me, I guess there's some that like hot and cold, but I'm always a hot. Like middle of summer, I don't care. Give me a latte. I have my own Breville that I had one of the top of the lines for years because I did a quick analysis of how much I was spending when I was living in Philly. And I would go to Starbucks every morning, sometimes hit it on the way back. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm spending so much money. I need to learn how to do this myself. Within a couple of months, I paid off the machine, for the amount of coffees. But I started having some fun making my own latte art and all that. But I do like regular, straight up coffee at times, but I'm just a connoisseur more of how the art of the texture and who can really do kind of the latte art. I really had no plan on talking about this tonight, but your shirt got me. And whereabouts in the 30A area is that? Okay.
Yeah, it is really good. They have their own coffee. I'll tell you what though, when my wife and I went on our honeymoon, we went to Costa Rica and on a cruise, and the excursion we went on was eight. It was either 8 or 9 hours. We were in this passenger van with about two or three other couples, and we went up into the mountains, 7,000 feet, to a local town up there, and we got to harvest macadamia nuts. And I realized the effort that is put into getting a macadamia nut, why they're so expensive. And then we had coffee, and the coffee was grown at 7,000 feet. So there was no acidity to it. And I felt like you could chug it. It was
Huh.
unbelievable. But the unfortunate part was, we were able to buy 2 bags of the beans to bring home, but that's all we were able to bring onto the cruise ship. If not, I would have bought that town out of coffee. It was so good.
Can you get it and have them ship it to you?
You can't. No, I can't. Like I tried to find it. Um, I mean, it was so good. So my wife and I we would ration that stuff out because we didn't want to use it all at once and grind up all the beans at one time, and we just kind of had to ration it out and enjoy it for the best that we could.
I'm gonna have to try one of your cold brews. So anyway, that's a really cool story there. I want to kind of, I generally do this with people. I'd like to kind of go back to the beginning, a little bit of where you came from, family dynamics, and kind of what kind of led you on to the football side. But what other sports were you a part of? And if you can, just kind of run with that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I grew up in a suburb north of Buffalo, New York, Grand Island, and it is an actual island, 8 miles long by 6 miles wide. And I grew up probably about 2 miles from Canada. So, hockey was big up there. I mean, all the sports that are big up north. And my dad played pro soccer. And so I grew up playing soccer for as long as
Who
I
do
can
you play
remember.
for?
He played for Toronto and Rochester. And he ended up he was on the U.S. team for tryouts, and they were playing Germany and shattered his kneecap. He was a goalie, and so he was done playing soccer at 26, but he's still obviously very passionate about it.
Hmm.
Um, and so I kind of wanted to follow in his footsteps. I wanted to play soccer, play goalie. I was dream of mine to go play over in Europe somewhere. Um,
So as a keeper, who was your who was your mentor or who was your idol that you looked at and said, I'd like to be and create your game like his?
yeah, well, I mean, it was honestly, it was my dad.
Hmm.
He was my role model growing up, and so, um, I didn't watch a ton of soccer growing up, but he would always take me to, we had the Buffalo Blizzard, and they were indoor soccer team,
Hmm.
so we'd always go to those games, and my cousins played for Messiah College, and they were both very standout athletes there, and so I mean, I wanted to play soccer at a very high level. Um, my dad, he was on the radio, grew up. He was a with FCA, and my mom did tours of Niagara Falls, Toronto, all that kind of stuff. And so, um, my dad was a deacon in church. We were heavily involved in our church, but I didn't. I accepted Christ when I was small, 6, 7 years old. But I didn't understand really the full meaning of that. I just kind of did it because a Sunday school teacher was like, "Do you want to go to heaven or hell?" So, as 7 years old, you're obviously clearly going to choose heaven. So, um, yeah. So I grew up just playing a ton of sports. Played basketball, soccer, ice hockey, baseball. Just kind of did it all, tried it all, and then in New York, um, you're only allowed to play one sport during the season, so you can't double dip. You can't, play soccer and then go kick for your football team. We didn't have games on Friday nights. You played Saturday afternoons. So football was it was different up there. It wasn't really the main priority. Uh, where you come down south and it is a totally different situation. Up there, it's
Right.
more basketball, hockey, lacrosse. Those are really big sports up there, not football. So, um, I played a lot of soccer, played a lot of travel, um, played for some really good teams throughout New York, had some really big tournaments, was getting exposure. It's just, trying to get a scholarship, playing soccer as a goalie is you got to double dip. You got to be really good at your position and you got to have really good grades to kind of get that full
Right.
scholarship situation. So, like I said, I was burnt out. Just playing a lot of soccer. And when I went to go try out for my school team, I was in ninth grade and I tried out for varsity just because that's the kind of the competition I was playing against.
Hmm.
Uh, with travel ball, I was playing against kids that were, I knew two kids that went over and started in the European, one with Barcelona and the other one with Liverpool in their system at 14 years old. So,
Right.
so I tried out for varsity and the head coach, his son's best friend, was the goalie, and so I knew I kind of had an uphill battle just simply because of he was a junior, I was a freshman, so they put
Yeah.
me on JV, and it really felt like I was taking a step back, and so my dad encouraged me just to stick with it. And then when I came around to my sophomore year to try out for varsity again, the same thing happened again because, well, now the goalie was a senior. Um, and so I was just kind of fed up. And this whole time, our
And
gym,
you were better than him, weren't you?
yeah, I mean, when I was a freshman in high school, I was able to punt it 18 to 18 and, really kind of give it a good rip. And the coach said, "Hey, we don't need somebody to kick it that far." I said, we have one of the fastest forwards in Western New York. I don't really understand that. So he was a track star and couldn't shoot worth a lick of beans, but he could outrun anybody.
And how tall were you and what was your size your freshman sophomore year?
Freshman year, I was my height, 6'3", um, and I was probably, I mean, I was only buck 70 at the time. But yeah, I mean, I was, tall enough, had a rifle leg. It just couldn't get in net. So the same thing happened my sophomore year. And the football coaches were our gym coaches. They've been begging me to come kick since I was in eighth grade. They offered me a
Hmm.
spot on the varsity team as an eighth grader, and I wasn't really wild about that. Playing football when I'd never played football before. But obviously we had the Bills when I was young. The Bills went to 4 Super Bowls in a row. um, I was a big Bills fan growing up. And so after I found out that I was going to be on JV again as a sophomore, I grabbed my stuff. My mom had not even left the parking lot yet, and grabbed my stuff, went back to the car, and my mom opened up the door. She said, what are you doing?" I said, "I just quit soccer." And she said, "Okay, well, you're gonna have a fun conversation with your father." And my dad is a very gentle man. He is very, very well respected up in Western New York. Um, and so when I came home and I told him, he just said, "Hey, let's go out for some breakfast." And so we went out for breakfast, and he just said, "Hey, well, what do you want to do?" So, "Well, I think I want to try football." And he goes, "All right, go ahead, let's do it." So he was very supportive. Um, he was the one that would, like yourself and Luke, like he said, "Where you want to kick, where you want to punt, I'll go shag." I don't know. He had to try it with the Bills, but he told me, he's like, "I could kick a soccer ball really far, but I could not figure out how to punt a football and make it spiral and turn over." So obviously that was a pretty short career for him with with tryouts in the NFL. But he was there. I mean, we went to Syracuse, we went to Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State, all these camps because you're only guaranteed 8 games in Western New York, and you do not get a lot of exposure. So you have to go out and kind of be proactive as far as getting your name out, trying to get a scholarship. And so,
And think about that today and how proactive you were then. But think about the different tools that are already out there. You're saying you had to go to these different camps, and I'm just a few years older than you, just a few, and there really wasn't much opportunity. They had a couple of camps out there, but it was about making your own highlight tape and sending those to schools. Um, but now it's so much different, and the good thing about this conversation, we can talk about all kinds of different things, but right at this point, talking to some young athletes or punters, kickers, or whatever, trying to get seen, utilizing the Twitter seems to be the way that you start following these coaches and uploading your own content so you can be seen on your Twitter page. Think about if you had that opportunity back then to have that sort of technology and a tool for you to be able to connect with coaches all across the country, which obviously you did not have at that time. And I think things would have been a little different probably on College Bound because of the power that you have. But keep going. I didn't mean to, sorry, but I was just saying for some of the people who listen, that there's a tool out there now that is widely used so you can communicate and develop those relationships. Go ahead.
yeah, I mean, my mom would videotape the games on VHS, and we had a buddy that was able to take the VHS, turn it into a CD, and then my parents hired a recruiting service, and so we gave them the CD, and then they were able to kind of pump it out to all the Division I, Division II, Division III coaches. And once I was able to do that my senior year, then I started getting some letters, but then the issue came, "Hey, we don't scholarship punters, we don't scholarship kickers. Hey, we only scholarship a kicker, but we don't scholarship a punter." It wasn't like it is now where, "Hey, we're going to scholarship a kicker and a punter, no big deal." I would probably say it was maybe 50-50 of schools that would scholarship and some that wouldn't. A lot of schools wanted you to walk on your first year, and then it will give you a scholarship. So trying to navigate, some of the offers were coming in, what's the best place? I didn't want to go somewhere and, try to have to compete for a scholarship. The beauty about kicking and punting is that the NFL will find you. They will, you look at some of the best kickers and punters, and you look at some of the best that are in the league right now, a lot of them, didn't go to big major programs. The NFL came and found them. And so obviously the exposure is a lot better. You have a lot of different camps out there where a lot of guys are going to, and all that kind of stuff. But, you don't have to go to Alabama to go to the NFL. I mean, you can go to Toledo. I went to the University of Toledo, started all 4 years. And I wanted to start all 4 years to get as much playing experience as possible. And that was huge for me to be able to go there and start all 4 years. So it was a process. It was a long process, but it was worth it. I'm glad I went there and was able to kind of grow each year. I think if I went to a bigger school, and there's always kind of competition, there's always walk-ons coming in, and you know how that goes, and you're kind of fighting for your job every year. Where at Toledo, they knew I was the guy, and I was able to progress, get stronger, get better every year. By the time I came around, my senior year, I was cranking on all cylinders. So
That's great. You Let's kind of go back to your dad and to the. It's crazy because I didn't know this story, and there's some similarities between us. I was a keeper, a little height difference, but I could fly. That was one of the things that I was really good at. I played a lot larger in goal than my size was. And matter of fact, I'm curious if your dad, when he was working with the national team, if Joe Macknick was the keeper coach at the time. But I did some stuff with them, and I made the team as a freshman, the varsity, and I was a keeper, and literally taught along with another guy that was my age. We had to kind of coach the guy that ended up the senior to how to be a keeper. And then the only way for me to see the field, I was a keeper for my club team that was really good. But then the only way to get the high school team was to be on the field. But my senior year, unlike New York, Kentucky allowed us to have, because for us, fall soccer, or for men, fall was in the fall for soccer, and obviously football. And so when I started my junior and senior year to play, I was like, how is this going to happen? And I just started picking up football to give it a shot because some coaches heard that I kicked a 45-yarder on a pickup game on the football field. And I just said, hey, put the ball down. I hit it. And so it was kind of the, hey, would you come kick with us? And because they allowed us to do both, I was able to try that year to do both, and then gave up soccer my senior year to kind of concentrate on the football aspect. But you talked about your dad in that moment, and you said he's a very gentle man, and I'm kind of going back to my personality and dealing with my own son, or sons and daughter for that, and I'm probably not known as a laid-back guy. So it's interesting to hear this first thing that he said, okay, let's go get something to eat. Let's talk this out. And I think it's a great aspect for a father who was a soccer player. And I would try to think that under the circumstances, I would be similar with my own son, just for the simple fact that, you want them to blaze their own trail. And even seeing it with Luke in the kicking and punting, a lot of people, oh, he could be a great kicker. And I didn't know really if he was going to kick or punt. Honestly, it would be fantastic if he could make it in the NFL. But on the other hand, getting a quality education paid for is the number one thing that I was thinking of. And if something else happens, great. But I've actually kind of enjoyed watching him punt, because even though I went to Louisville, I don't know if you know this, I went to Louisville as a punter and then ended up never punting it down and just kicking field goals. So anyway, seeing him have that year as a punter and not kicking is kind of takes me back to kind of your dad in that situation, I guess. And I was thinking, I hope I would have handled it that way. And that was obviously a learning experience for you, and in how you're going to be able to deal with that with your own kids, if that arises or something similar to that, when they make a pretty life-altering choice for them after X amount of years of really being involved in there. So I think that stuff's great. You talked about your faith a little bit with the fact that your dad was part of FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes. You said he was a deacon in the church as well, and you started off in a little bit of a, hey, young, hey, heaven, hell, I'm going to go to the heaven place. That'd be cool, right? But through your your time as you've kind of grown, how did your, is this about the time your faith started diving in? Because I know you're a really strong man in your Christian faith and the way you walk. So I'm just curious how that kind of changed from 6, 7 up to where we are now, kind of chronologically in your college days.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, for me, probably, um, college was, you get so focused in on the high school kind of grind of, you're waking up early, sometimes you're in the weight room, you're going through your day, you got practice afterwards, you come home, you grab some dinner, you do your homework, and it's rinse and repeat, and I didn't, uh, I didn't party or anything like that. I was just really focused on trying to be the best athlete I could be, in whatever sport I was playing. I was so focused in on sports that I really didn't care about anything else. And so, when I got to Toledo, it was a complete uh, eye-opening experience. It's, you're on your own. You don't really have your parents there to kind of, uh, you don't have to answer to your parents or anything like that. And so I just tried to figure things out the best that I could. And when you come in as a freshman, I was 6'3", but I was a buck 85. And, you want to fit in, you want to fit in with the guys. And so, yeah, you'd go to parties, you'd go drink, all that kind of stuff. And really just, it got to a point where, I was just drinking too much. I was not taking my faith seriously. I wasn't really taking football seriously, just because I wanted to fit in. And so I had a pretty rough night, just drinking too much, and had a little encounter with the porcelain god, and for a little bit too long. And I just so I can't live like this anymore. I'm wasting my talent that the Lord's blessed me with, because I really wasn't performing very well. I'm wasting my talent, and I'm wasting the opportunity to be a witness and a light on this team, when that's what I should be. That's what we're called to be, and not wasting away my time drinking and trying to fit in with what the world considers a good, fun time. And so that's when I kind of recentered, refocused my life on Christ. My junior year in college, and I ended up meeting my wife probably a month after that. And so that things started to turn for me. I started to started to play better. I was just Life was different for me. My priorities had switched, and it because of that, putting God first, everything else kind of fell into place. And so each year, it was just a growing process. And then obviously when you get to the NFL, it was a totally different animal. You're going to the NFL, and it's your job. And if you do not perform, you're going to get cut. Rather than in college, you're kind of like, hey, you know what? I had a bad game, 2 bad games. You know what? It's okay. It's not a big deal. You're fine. And so adjusting to that, was pretty hard. And so I think you can probably remember your rookie year, and the mental mind games that you were playing. It took a huge toll on me, and it was pretty tough. And so I think my faith grew a lot, in that moment. And then obviously coming to Tennessee, another huge faith moment for me, just because, when you get cut in your second year, and you're off to a pretty good start, my life was changed. It was rattled pretty good. We had a son. He was 6 weeks old at the time when I got cut, and I have to come home and tell your wife, like, hey, I just lost my job, and I really have no idea if I'm going to get picked up. And if I do get picked up, I have no idea where we're going to go. It could be really anywhere in the country. And so it's times I was actually just talking to my son about it. He's 11 years old, about, you think you go through something and it's bad. Like, God, why did this bad thing happen to me? I thought God wants good things to happen, and he does. But sometimes you have to go through what you think is bad to come out in a situation that was really, looking back on it now, you're like, huh, okay, God, I see how you were working there. I needed to get cut. I needed a fresh start. I was a terrible husband. I was a terrible father. I wasn't involved. I was focused on football completely. I wasn't in the Word, and I needed that wake up call to get sent to Tennessee to kind of rejuvenate, revitalize my relationship with Christ. So, um, yeah, I mean, it's each year I feel like I'm growing a little bit every year, and I started reading the Bible in a year about 4 years ago, and it has been a complete game changer for me. Because if you miss a day when you're reading the Bible and the Word, you can get behind pretty quick. And I'm a guy when I start something, I want to finish it, and I want to finish it the right way. And so that's been a huge challenge for me to be able to wake up, get in the Word every day, and just spend time. Uh, Reading God's word. And each year I read it, I feel like I could read over the same story over and over again, but God kind of reveals something different to me.
Wow. Wow. I don't know really where to. There's so many things to unpack there.
Sorry about that.
No, no, it's great. That's a whole idea of what I think everybody has a story. Everybody has a testimony. This is the reason why we want to do this. I want to hear people's stories. I want to go back a little bit right before the NFL and say before we hit the faith stuff. Is there somebody that, okay, so early on you said as a keeper you kind of tried to emulate your dad, and he was somebody that was kind of your mentor, and not only on the field but off the field, obviously, because you can tell the high regard you have. Was there somebody once you started to punt that you really kind of said, I want to try to be like this person, and I want to really focus in on their techniques and training? There was somebody there that kind of stands out?
Yeah, obviously growing up a Bills fan, when I started punting, when I made the switch, Brian Moorman had just become the starting punter for the Bills.
Man, now you're really making me feel old.
So, so Brian Moorman was the punter, and he might have been the punter for maybe 2 or 3 years. But yeah, I just remember watching games and seeing him just tear it up in that stadium, and I was able to play. I was able to play in that stadium, my sophomore year for the Section 6 championship game. And so to go in there, and it was a cold night, windy night, and I just remember punting in that stadium like, holy cow, it is hard to punt in this place. And thinking of Brian Moorman, and then reading up on him, and he was a track star and all that kind of stuff, and his leg is just incredibly fast. And so I would just try to study him, emulate him. There was a couple other punters, Craig Hentrick, who I was fortunate enough when I got cut in Denver to come here. He was on IR, and so I was able to learn under him for the short time that we were together here. And so I just started watching other punters. I never got a lesson. Never, the days of going to see Gary Zahner and all that kind of stuff and all these camps, like there wasn't really any of that, right? So.
Right.
I just taught myself, like watching these guys, how they drop the ball, how their steps, all that kind of stuff. And, I'd go out and just practice it. I would try to punt the ball over my house, and then the challenge would be, hey, can you punt it over the power lines, across the street? And it just became a different challenge to me. And it was watching those two guys was really, really, really cool.
Well, Craig is a guy that I actually did some camps with when I was in college, and he was at the time he was a practice squad guy at Green Bay, and since moving to Tennessee, been able to kind of rekindle that friendship with Craig and his wife Lisa. But he was a guy that prior to maybe a Darren Bennett in the NFL that did what you call the flip-flop or the Aussie. For those you don't know, the nose is down, the ball is spinning backwards. Craig would do the leaf. He kind of like hold the ball opposite, like as if it was a left-footed drop. He was, and we had Coach Lowry on here not too long ago and just talked about all the fakes that were always implemented in when we would play the Titans, always having to be prepared for Craig because he was a great athlete, very similar to yourself, just multi-sport athlete that has all sorts of ability. It's funny, you kind of hear about the punters being great athletes, but for some reason us kickers get shunned. You know, it was like back in the day, the old international kicker come over and it's like, I kick touchdown and pick up check, you know, and it's the punters got way more respect than the kickers did. But hopefully we're changing that ball game. So it's amazing that you're self-taught to the ability you are, because other than Jeff Fiegels, you two, in my mind, and Jeff, and you know how the next generation is always bigger, better, faster, stronger. You know, at one time I was like second in field goal percentage as far as the NFL goes, and I was like 82 or 83%, right? You're not going to make a roster now with that. And you see guys in the punting kind of realm, and I will say this too, there was many, many years where we weren't able to work the balls in at all, and they were straight out of the box. It's smart that they decided, hey, we'll allow these guys to do it, because you're going to have bigger changes in the game and a positive level, longer field goals, and you know, you got touchbacks now, you don't have as many returns. But the punting aspect has helped a lot too. But you being self-taught, and you and Figs being these guys that are just like a sniper out there, and the way you just line up, and it's interesting, and I'm very fortunate to have this relationship with you where you're doing this, where you came out and worked with my son punting, and I could say the same sort of thing to him, but when he sees a guy that's just been to 3 Pro Bowls out there and was all pro say, hey, your shoulders say you're pointing over here, but you're saying you're aiming over here. This isn't going to add up. And it's all of a sudden, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir. I can see it. But one thing I really liked about what you did and what you do, you simplify things at times, relax, and what you're doing is always, and I say this kicking-wise, you're always kicking a straight kick. You're always kicking a straight punt. But where are you aiming as far as your body? You have to erase the lines and find your target and kick toward your target. And I think what you did by making your own target from sideline to numbers, and you know, giving yourself about a 10-yard box there, that you're trying to drop it in that box every time, or at least shoot it beyond it towards the sideline closer. And significantly, that improved Luke's ability to kind of get everything lined up, shoulders, hips, knees, feet, going in the same direction. So in that part, I think it's great. It does stink when you try to go out and implement it, and you can't, because schemes aren't allowing you to do that. Meaning, if you can't offset, or if you can't get your body turned because you're going to be outside of a blocking area for protection, then yeah, you can't become that great directional punter. The quivers that you have in your bag, if you will, or the different clubs you have, is incredible. And I believe you've mentioned this before. You don't feel like you have one of the strongest legs in the NFL as a punter.
No.
But I'm going to tell you, as a guy that watches you each Sunday, I take you over anybody, over anyone in the NFL, because I've seen you in person in ridiculous win. You were playing the Ravens a couple of years ago. I was on the Ravens sideline. You were punting deep in on your side, just right where you come out of the locker room. Wind was howling in your face, kind of directional in your face, right to left, going towards the visitor side. And I was like, there's no way he's going to hit a bomb here. There's no way. You probably hit a 3.5 hang time that went 50.
Yeah.
You remember the kick then?
Oh, just without a doubt.
Bomb. Yeah. So where did this? I mean, I'm kind of setting this up. I'm not. Your head's big enough to begin with. I mean, I can see all those things behind you. You don't need it. But where did that part come from? Where did you develop that part of directional punting? Because it's not the different areas that you are a master of is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, I think when I came in, it was my senior year. Our special teams coach at Toledo said, "Hey, look, if you want to stand out, you need to work on some directional punting." Okay, fine. Worked on it that off season. My senior year, I just said, "Hey, let's just go right. Let's go left. I don't even want to think about the middle. I want to get zoned in into that type of thinking because I knew, my special teams coordinator, he'd kind of been back and forth, NFL, college. And he said, if you want to play a long time in the NFL at the next level, you need to be good at directional punting. So when I went to Denver my rookie year, I was going against two guys that were bombers, but I was pretty consistent. If you gave me 10 punts, I'd probably put 6 of them, maybe 7 outside the numbers. Decent hang time. I wasn't going out there trying to hit a 5-0 because
Right.
when you start doing that, directional punting with the hang time, it's really, really hard to do. To get that ball outside the numbers towards the sidelines, you have to sacrifice a little bit, a little bit of hang time just to get your placement right. And so just kept kind of working on it. And then when I got cut, I had the conversation with Craig, and Alan Lowry was the special teams coordinator. And he said, "Hey, if we think you can be a great directional punter, let's just keep working on it." And so I just told myself, like, when I went out and warmed up, it was, "Hey, let's aim 40 yards downfield out of bounds." It wasn't, I'm going to go out on the hash and just hit balls down the middle, where it goes, I'm just warming up. I just trained myself over and over again, to hit those spots, to hit those lines, even when I'm warming up, going left, going right. And so I pretty much made a decision to say, I know I don't really have the strongest leg. I'm not going to go out there and hit 5-0s every time. If my niche could be, just to be very consistent at directional punting, I think I'll be able to play for a while. And so Alan Lowry said, "Hey, look, when I got here, he's like, hey, I want you to watch Fiegels." Okay, great. Sat down, watched Fiegels over and over again. And I noticed, like, this guy's playing in the league forever, and the guy doesn't hit a ball over 4.3 hang, So that just kind of became my niche, just hitting that kind of ball. It would be, 4.5, 4.6, 4.7. But then, each year I kind of fool around with it a little bit. It's like, hey, can I hit, the screamer that's a 3.0, kind of looks like it's a complete shank, but it's the Baltimore punt. It goes 55 yards and it's out of bounds at a 3-1 hang time. And you just start trying different things over and over again. And it's just become to the point now where, that's all I do. That's when I warm up left, I warm up right. I have my targets. And it's just over and over, repetition. And so I see a lot of young kids out there that are just, they go out there, boom, they're trying to hit 5-0s. And it's like, it's not, if you can go out there and hit a 5-0 9 out of 10 times, then go ahead, go do it. But if you look at, consistency, average, would you want one that's 5-0, 55 yards, and then the next one's going to be 35 yards at a 3.8? Or would you rather take 2 balls outside the numbers at 50 yards at a 4.5? You know what I'm saying? So I think it was just a lot of practice and repetition of that muscle memory of, when I go out there, I'm relaxed and I pick out my target, and my body just knows what to do from there. So
You're a couple things with that. You told me, I believe, was it 2-3 years ago, I think you had only one punt that was higher than a 4.7 or 4.8, something like that.
I'm trying to think.
But then you said you had only one punt that was less than 4.0. It was only one. So your consistency was so impressive. Again, I live in Tennessee, so when your game's on every week, so I get to see them. Your direction is phenomenal, but there's so many coaches, especially at the high school and college level, I'll even talk even the pro level, we need the bangers. We need these guys who are going to hit these huge balls. And if they would know how, see, they go to a clinic and they say, well, this is what punters and kickers say, this is how we're going to coach them. And this is the protection we're going to give for them. And they try to like reinvent the wheel instead of be really good at protection and set it up and use the strengths of your punter and your kicker, which is what you're trying to utilize for that play to begin with. So it's beyond me when you have a guy that's supposed to be a directional guy. You don't give him opportunities to really utilize that. And I see it with a lot of guys. I heard it this last week. They had one of those combine things out at one of the, I think it was Zonners or whatever. And a guy didn't quite have the leg. He said, I just didn't see the pop. And he hit literally like 5 kicks in a row. They were like 4.7 to 4.85. I'm like, if you don't have the pop, ball's going 48, 50 yards. All right, I get it. But you don't have to have the pop if you have the direction. And again, knowing this mindset of you got to have this big ball, you got to be able to do this. I don't believe that, to be honest with you. I see it with you. I see it with other guys. I saw Fugels for years do it. And if you would have had Fugels earlier learn how to do the Aussie, the flip-flop, he would hit a pass to his gunners. For years, I watched him because we played against the Giants, and he was there, or he was with the Cardinals, but he would literally hit a pass. And the guys would run down to about the 5-yard line and catch the pass because at that time it seemed like most returners really didn't step back beyond the 10. And so it's just fascinating to me to see how guys like yourself, the Aussies coming over as well. Sam Cook's another guy of a modern day that has other clubs that they're really utilizing. Another great punt I remember against the Patriots, and they were out, full out rush, last punt of the game, and you hit it and you got it low enough that it got on the ground real well, but I believe it actually still turned over and then it rolled all the way down to the 1-yard line. And if you look on a piece of paper, it looks like, oh, that was a great punt. You got it down, it was X amount of yards long, but in reality, it was a situational play, and you knew you had to get the ball off. You couldn't give up a return, so ball on the ground, more effective hang time, yada yada. All these things that go into it. Where if you have a guy that just says punt down the middle 5-0, there's so much more to it. And I wish that part of the game would be expanding in the special teams coordinators around the NFL and even in college. Because I believe a lot of college coaches don't know how to coach it, and they end up gimmicking and everything and not actually doing a good job of coaching their specialists to give them an opportunity like you and myself were able to have to play at the next level. So you say you end up coming here, and you've had a spectacular career here. But you were talking about kind of, you weren't being a great father. You weren't being a great husband in the regard of what you were doing. Can you go into like how was football so? And I'm trying to think back to myself. I mean, there's a lot of times where I had events I could go to, and my wife was like, "I don't want you to go to the events. It's taking family time. You're making good enough money at that time." But I'm like, "Yeah, but that's going to cut off at some point, right?" And you're trying to balance the NFL for not for long and gathering as much as we can in our nest egg, but also be there for our kids that, when they learn to ride a bike, you're there to help them do that. So what shifted in your balance, do you think, as far as what you were doing in Denver to what you started to do here?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was so focused on football at 6 a.m, get home at 6, grab dinner, go to bed. And, like I said, it was rinse, repeat. And And then when I came here, it was Coach Fisher was, I was home. I was home by like 2 o'clock, and I'm like, wait a
What?
second, this is football, you know? And I just didn't think it was possible. And so the schedule was different, and it was more laid back. And Al Lowry, I mean, he's a great guy. He said, hey, you got punt period first thing, and then we got special teams are all first. And once that's done, go get your lift and you can get out of here. I'm thinking, this is this is unbelievable. And
Where were you, Coach Lowry? Where were you?
I know. And so I think it was just a complete schedule change. It was moving to a different city. Um, it was, kind of, like I said, resetting kind of priorities and, spending more time with my family and really realizing, like, when I got cut, said to myself, like, football was becoming an idol. It was, you start getting those checks and you're like, I got to keep this going, got to keep it going. But then when it gets rocked a little bit, um, you kind of take a step back and you kind of realize, I was, um, I'm into this a little bit too much. This is becoming too much of an idol, too much of a priority, that it's affecting all these other little things around me, and mainly my family, and the relationship that I'm with my wife, and so to come here with the schedule change, it was more laid back. It just, and to have Craig Hendrick here, such a role model as far as um, really helping me from the mental side. Because when I got cut, it was, I was pretty rattled because I thought I was off to a good start. And so to come here, he really just helps me out mentally. And he's got a great eye for technique. And so he kind of worked on a couple of things, not a lot, but it was just enough to kind of,
Mhm.
take me from average at best to, okay, hey, now he's climbing a little bit. And so just kind of building upon that. And it was a much needed change, and I'm thankful for that change.
Your regimen, and kind of you were just talking about Craig Hendricks and kind of how he was able to be kind of a guy there that could help you. You said go from a little bit of some mediocre play to increasing your ability just by pointing a few little things. And I mean, when you get to the NFL level, you have really just minor adjustments that can make the consistency be considerable more. I was very fortunate to have the same sort of group of people to help me. John Casey, first off, changed my technique considerably when I was with him into the Panthers. I learned from Morton Anderson about kind of everyday training as far as for a guy he was like 38 years old at that time, and how he was able to train in the off season. And then I was able to live with Norm Johnson for a while. And my first year, I was like the kickoff guy in the long field goal, and Norm was like the other regular kicker, right? And so I went into work with him every day. I watched him be a pro every single day. Sean Landetta showed me how to be a guy that was professional off the field as well as on the field, and be able to utilize my marketing to a degree. So, what do you think you can do or are doing to the next generation? Like, I know what you've already done to my son, but like, is that something else that you want to do, and is that something that you're part of doing right now as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I love to invest into kids that really love to punt and kick. It's something that they want to get better at. Your son is the class A example of somebody that when you go out and you just spend one-on-one time with them, they are eager to learn. Um, they're willing to learn, and they're willing to try new things. They're willing to kind of maybe step outside their comfort zone to try to get better. And they're not kind of, this is how I do it, this is how I want to do it, and kind of stubborn about it. And so I love to spend time with the next generation. You can't play this game forever, and I would love to be able to pass down some of the things that I've learned and really try to change, uh, I don't want to say the culture, but just change the mindset of I feel like directional punters like myself are a dying breed. Like we are slowly being eliminated from the NFL, and it's becoming, hey, how big of a bomb can you hit? And let's see how far you can hit it, how high you can hit it. A lot of the Aussie guys coming over, hitting that Aussie kick, which is effective most of the time. But it's just something different, something that they're used to, and something that us growing up in America are not. So,
Right.
but trying to change that perception of, hey, you know what, you need to go out and hit a 5-0 every time to be in the NFL. And it's, I track, I chart all my punts directionally. I chart what hash they're on every year, and I go back at the end of the year and I look at it. And I do a hit chart, with the arrows, curving, turning over. Maybe it didn't, and it's coming back inside. So I do that every year, and since 2015, I mean, you're looking at 6 seasons. I have 5 balls over 5-0. So, it's just to show you that you don't have to hit that 5-0 ball every time to play in the NFL, and to teach kids that might not necessarily, like myself, I don't have the biggest, strongest leg, and I know there's other kids out there that are kind of in my boat, but they're technicians. Like there's kids that I see, and they're, they got the shorter steps, and they got the really good drop, and it's consistent. But it's like, oh, hey, you know what? That was only 4.7. Kind of like what you talked about, the kid that's hitting 4.7, 4.8. I mean, what's wrong with that? And so, just to be able to help out the next generation of kids and try to encourage them, like, hey, look, this is how long I played in the NFL, and this is how I did it. And if you can do that, or if you can kind of get on that same wavelength, or that mind, the same approach to that, in your mind, it's you can do it. And so, I think whenever I'm done with football, I'd love to invest into camps, into sessions where really, I feel like you go to these things now and it's just almost like a meat market. It's, hey, here, go hit some balls. We'll rank you. We'll do this, but there's really nothing to help these kids out. And so to spend a little bit more time with them, to coach them up a little bit, help them out technique wise, and from the mental side of the game, how important that is mentally. It's something that I'm definitely interested in.
No, that's great. And as a dad, I appreciate what you've done and invested in my son, and he's learned a tremendous amount from you. And I know we had this kind of early on conversation that, there's times that you look back and you were a little hard-headed trying to learn from your own father as a keeper, and yet your dad was a pro keeper. So it's just kind of interesting how there's just something different about it, getting it from your dad. But I'm very much appreciative of that, and I know you'd be great at doing that to the next generation. So you kind of went into, I was actually kind of figuring what you were doing now, but it kind of goes into a little bit of your post-football planning. Is that something that you are wanting to possibly do that, or is there anything? I know you're really strong in your walk. Is there anything in the ministry side that you're trying to do? Is there something maybe that can be a thread that weaves all that together? That have you ever contemplated any of that?
Yeah, I mean, I've thought about it here and there. I've thought about having smaller camps. Because it's not about seeing how much money I can make. That's not the point of it. It's, hey, can I get these kids together? You look at Luke, for example, your son, and it's, when we're out there playing together, it's not like we're that much different as far as, he hits a 4.8. Well, guess what? I might hit a 4.7. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not the product is not much different. And so it's, hey, look, how do we get you to be a little bit more consistent so that when you're given 10 balls, right? That's what that's kind of my standard. I get 10 balls, and I like to see, hey, how many can I put? I set up a box, right, 45 to 55 yards, numbers to sidelines. How many can I put in that box that are effective punts? And so how can we get, okay, hey, Luke, you just hit a 4.8, I hit a 4.7, but yours didn't go in the box, mine did. How can we get that to go in the box more consistently? Because it's not, we're not that much different. You know what I'm saying? And it might be, hey, your first step is too far inside, or hey, your nose is dropping too much, causing it not to turn over as much as you want, and it's not going to the box. There's little minute things, and so I'd love to be able to have these smaller camps to really kind of dive into the technique of punting, and on the same wavelength. Hey, let's talk about off the field. Let's talk about faith. Let's a bunch of different topics, and so you really feel like you're pouring into these kids, and not it's, hey, you have 10 balls, you got to go hit them, and I'm going to rank you, and like that's that.
Right.
Just spending a little bit more time and investing into, because you see what happens when you worked with Luke a couple times. You can see the change. It's not, hey, I spent $1,500 to go to this camp and I didn't get the ranking I want because I had an off weekend. I didn't perform as well.
I heard that these guys this last weekend spent $400 to go out. They got 6 balls. They warmed up. They had 10 minutes to warm up, and some of them waited over an hour before they hit their next punt. And they had 6 balls, and that's how they got chosen, whether or not they were able to be seen by scouts at another time. I was like, well, good luck with that, But no, I think you'd be amazing at it, first off. And to kind of wrap this up, I got a 2-part question for you. What do you feel like your biggest, what's your, well, it's really 3 questions within one. Your proudest accomplishment personally and professionally. And then, I don't know, you might be a little too young. Do you remember that there was a movie called City Slickers? And I asked this with all the people. And there's this guy in a dude ranch named Curly, and he talks about that one thing in life. Like, what's that one takeaway that we can get from Brett Kern that says, hey, this is what you need to have X in life. This is that one thing. The big takeaway, what makes Brett Kern tick. So there's your 3-point. Accomplishments, personally, professionally, and what's your one big takeaway?
Okay, I'll start with accomplishments. Personally, is going on 13 years of marriage, and kind of growing every year with that, with 3 kids, and that is, I love it. Love my wife to death, and so that's definitely a big, personal accomplishment. And professionally, honestly, it would probably be playing in Tennessee under 5 head coaches.
Ooh, yeah, I'd say that's pretty big.
You know what it's like with the coaching change, general manager change. A lot of them want their own people. Obviously, in Denver, I made it. Coach Shanahan was my coach my rookie year, and then my second year, Coach McDaniels was the coach, and he wanted his own guy, and so I'm out. So to be here in one city under 5 coaches, the Pro Bowls are great. It's a great experience for my family. The All Pro stuff's cool too, but to play through 5 coaches is pretty special. And then the one thing, I would probably say, having Jesus in your life. That's, he makes me tick. He makes me go. He is the God of the hills and the valleys. And I think we all go through times where we're on the hills and we're on the mountaintop and everything's great. And do we abandon him thinking that we got up to the top by ourselves? But he's always there for us on the top and when we're in the valleys. Not everything in life is smooth and easy. And especially, playing in the NFL, it's, sometimes it could be, by the quarter, you're on the hill, and then the next quarter you might be in the valley, depending on the situation and what happens. So, putting my trust in him has made the NFL job, I wouldn't say easy, but it has made it's put it into perspective, knowing exactly that he knows how long I'm going to play. He wants good for me. He wants good for us, putting our trust in him. And so he is the one thing that I would, tell everybody to take a look at and get interested in, and consider a life change by, having Jesus in your life.
Oh man, that's great stuff. I thank you for kicking it with us here today, taking some time away from your family on this evening after you put them to bed, and some quiet time with your wife is being held up. So go get with Tiffany. But thank you so much for your time, brother. So impressive to watch you on the field, off the field, and so appreciative of what you do to the next generation. Appreciate you, and thanks so much.
Thanks, David. Appreciate it.